Barcelona in 1972. Vladimir Estrikov scored one, Alexander Makovikov scored 1-2, and the Rangers went to Wolverhampton Town. But 11 years later, Tottenham Hotspur in 1972 also went to Wolverhampton Town when they played Wolverhampton Wanderers in the first leg of the very first UEFA Cup final, because like the very first Cup Winners' Cup final that Rangers played in 1961, after beating Wolverhampton Town Wanderers in the semi-final, it was played over two legs. And Tottenham Hotspur in 1972, Alan Mullery scored one, Martin Chivers two against Wolverhampton, although that's a bit disingenuous because one of those legs was played at White Hart Lane. That's where Alan Mullery scored his goal. Rangers are the only club to have both beaten and lost two Russian clubs in a European final, club finals. And the interesting thing about that is in 1972, UEFA Cup final first leg at Molineux, the referee was Tofik Bakramov, and although he's Azerbaijani, in those days that was part of the Soviet Union, so he was incorrectly known as Russian. He was the Russian linesman. Bakramov was the guy who allowed Jeff Husko in the 1966 World Cup final, and the first team to beat England after they won the 66 World Cup was Scotland in 1967. One of their goals that day was scored by Jim McCalliog, who is now at Wolves and played in that European final against Tottenham, and he scored his goal in the 72nd minute. I think that's quite interesting. Maybe you don't. The other interesting thing is the second leg of that UEFA Cup final that Spurs won in 1972 was refereed by Lawrence Van Ravens, and that's the very same guy who refereed our game in the second round of the European Cup Winners' Cup against Sporting in Lisbon, who didn't know about the away goals rule and made us play out the penalty shootout. You know, that was the reward you got. And you got a European final as a reward rather than getting sacked like you should have done. And he'd also refereed the previous season's UEFA Cup final, even though in those days it was actually known as the Fairs Cup, because when Tottenham won the UEFA Cup in 1972, it was the first ever UEFA Cup. But when it was the Fairs Cup, it was replacing. And the year before that, Leeds United had beaten Juventus over two legs, and Lawrence Van Ravens refereed the first leg, which got delayed when it rained really badly in Turin, so they had to come back next day, and Leeds wore a red away kit. I'm getting kind of off the beaten track with this one. Hi folks, how you doing? Welcome to your FATEC. Rangers, who were the first British club to play in the final of the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1961, then met Tottenham Hotspur in the year 1962 in the European Cup Winners' Cup, and Tottenham Hotspur in 1963 won the European Cup Winners' Cup, making them the first British club to win the European Cup Winners' Cup, the first British club to win a European trophy. Ibrox 125 years old, half of 125 is 62 and a half years, and it's just over 62 years since Rangers met Tottenham in the second round of the 1962-63 European Cup Winners' Cup. This is a clash of European royalty, never mind British footballing royalty, it's European royalty. The European royalty of the house of, we haven't won the big one, either of us, but we really could, and we've really had a proper go at it over the years. We've reached so many European finals. Tottenham and Rangers have both reached 5 European finals each, and had various ways of getting very close to the big one, but not quite managing it. Preview pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet. Sunday night it was the last Gersnet pod. It's still up there. It's a great one. It's Craig that's hosting it. He's interviewing or quizzing or hosting Stuart Weir and Chris Jack. Two proper journos there, so that was an absolutely a cracking pod. I would watch that one if I was you. And I'm also sponsored by Betano, Flixbus, Lidl, Just Eat, Hankook, Strauss, Swissquote, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, TNT Sports, and Tesco. It turns out Tesco, that wasn't on the boards behind Big Ange and Big Phil today at the Europa League pre-match presser, because that bit it was mentioned by our manager, Philip Clement. He shops at Tesco. If you want a word with Big Phil, just hang about Tesco. And the coincidental thing about that for me is this is a European preview pod, and I do quite like the European stuff. I was all apologies on my pod on Sunday night for being so slow. I'm making no apologies tonight because I'm just going to really enjoy myself here. Feel free to switch off. It's going to be, see the stuff I did at the beginning there, the stats, that's just the start. It's going to get worse in that respect if you're not into the old historical European football stats. but you just go along to Tesco to meet big football. And when I went to Bratislava, believe it or not, Bratislava, 2005, Armedia Bratislava, in the old To Hell Napole, it's been completely rebuilt since. That was my first ever trip abroad with Rangers. The 2-8 draw in the Champions League group stages with Armedia Bratislava, Petr Zalka, whatever they were properly known as then, and then went bust. And I'm talking about them, no us. And I remember turning up at the wee square in Bratislava, very modest and what have you, and I think, this is quite good. The Bears were there, starting to get a bit. There was a guy standing a couple of crates of what, to me, for all the world, looked like tenants. And I'm like, mate, where'd you get the beers? He's like, Tesco. I'm like, hi, right, mate. Because I was still a bit naive when it came to travelling with Rangers anyway. I was like, okay, pal, right now. What is the name of the... No, it's Tesco, honestly. I didn't realise that Tesco had went big in Eastern Europe, the former Warsaw Pact countries, and I went along to Tesco, and the shelves were practically empty. It was totally cleared out. It was like 2 pence for a can, and everybody was having their fill. It was absolutely fantastic. So our Phil, Big Phil Clement, he is a Tesco's regular. He added them to the sponsorship. I'm going to ramble tonight, folks. I'm going to ramble. As I say, I was doing a lot of accuracy, foam shame. Everything's my fault. No apologies on Sunday because I was so chilled out by that result against Ross County. Rangers finally, doubling the amount of goals they'd scored away from home domestically, doubling it in one game, a nice 3-0 win. There was never really any danger against Ross County. It was just such a massive relief to see us getting those kind of numbers starting to run down. Aberdeen hopefully getting to within touch and distance of them to get ourselves at least back into second place. So we're still a work in progress rather than an ongoing disaster, as many of our own fans would have us painted. I was so relieved I was going to fall asleep during the pot. I had to keep trying to revive myself. I kept apologising and all that. And a lot of folks said, don't apologise. It was getting a bit of attention seeking. The amount of people who got in touch with me to say, Alec, it's all right, mate. I thought, worried about me. Thanks very much, by the way. Thanks. It was so touching. But I was probably coming across a bit of attention seeking. I was like kind of one apology away from going, can you DM me, please? It was the kind of podding equivalent of, I look fat in this, don't I? I look fat. No, you look great. You look great. Don't listen. I do believe in apologising. I'm anybody who doesn't apologise. When it comes to life, actual life, real stuff, basically there's members of my family that I just don't see anymore because they don't know how to apologise. They can't apologise. And I'm, that's a bit heavy. That's a bit heavy. This is a pod, a pod, so what is that? You don't want to hear somebody constantly apologising all the time. It gets to a point where it's like, well, why am I watching this, Alec? Why am I watching your podcast if you keep telling me it's shite? It was just, the main thing is above the apology is to be honest. It's just to give you, it's a post-match reaction, and it's just to let you know how I'm actually feeling. And I had to be honest. I had to go and just I tried recording it a couple of times and think, God, this is dead. Folk aren't going to listen to this. Well, that's just the way you're feeling, Alec. Folk just want to know how you're feeling. They want to know how another Rangers fan is feeling about that again the day. There'll be a few other people out there who recognise that, and they are quite glad to know that they're not alone in their sudden feeling of total relaxation after a kind of stressful start to our season domestically. So I put it out there, but no apologies. I'm not going. In fact, sorry, not sorry if I've been boring already about the year. I'm going to try and sound pure hard and all that. Like I don't really care what you think. But don't talk about Sunday. But this is the moment, isn't it? It's the two big games that we're going to get Philippe Clement sacked. That we're going to humiliate us. They might still. Who knows? But as the manager himself was saying today in his pre-match presser, and as James Tavernier reiterated, no matter how much all these all these old names, Michael Grant, where did he come from? Was he him before? Keith Downey, he's turning up at the presser just now as well. And we're on the first channel, TNT, tomorrow night as well. It's the first channel because we're playing Tottenham, we're playing a big English team. So it's a big deal. Certainly we're important. But the questions were very, very small-minded and backward. It was all about trying to get our players to say, aye, we pure hate Ange Postecoglou. It'd be great to beat that ex-Celtic bastard. Like we're going to say that. Like the players are going to say that and give them that bit of inspiration. And it was also about how psyched up are you for this game? I think it's going to take your attention off Sunday. Do you not care about League Cup finals? Do you want to give Celtic something to inspire them in Sunday's look? No, not going to do that either. Can you believe that manager let the players watch the Tottenham Chelsea game in the telly on the way back for Dingwall? Imagine letting your players watch your next opponents on television, on a screen, to see how they play. That was coming across as a kind of weirdo thing to do as well. It was getting quite desperate in that presser. I'm probably just a bit cynical, but what I will say is, I was there as well. All since the moment we knew we were playing Celtic in the League Cup final, and we already knew at that point we were playing Tottenham on the Thursday night in our last European match of the season. Yeah, sorry, the year of the year. It won't be last European match of the calendar year 2024. I'm sorry, not sorry for that mistake. Sorry, not sorry. The moment we knew that this is a double header, this is where it could all go wrong. This is where Clement could get sacked. He could get humiliated. Maybe we need to get another man. Get Derek McInnes, who we pumped 6-0 last week. Get him in to shore it up a bit of common sense and make sure that we don't get utterly destroyed in these games. And I really don't have a problem with anybody thinking that, because that is what can happen. It wasn't just that our last game against an English Premier League club was probably the worst game I've ever been at in my life. Probably the worst moment, the worst game, I would say, in my life as a Rangers fan. Certainly the heaviest defeat I've ever experienced for Rangers, losing 7-1. It wasn't just that. It was also that we've lost 7-1 to Celtic in the League Cup final before. But that was in the 1950s, Alec. Yeah, that's got nothing to do with it. Well, the problem is we lost 2-1 to Aberdeen at Pittodrie, and then the following Saturday, Aberdeen lost 6-0 to Celtic in the League Cup at Hampden. So there was that chance when Rangers couldn't put together a performance domestically away from home. You're thinking this could be the worst possible. This could be like 14-2 over the two games. It might still yet be. Celtic getting a good result in Zagreb on Tuesday night. They're really consolidating in their Champions League campaign. I think they're going to get through probably. That'll be a big moment for them. And we're doing well in our Europa League campaign so far. The 4-1 doing at home by Lyon. I think Tottenham could take Lyon. It just shows you what we've improved since then. We had that great win in Nice, but nobody really believes that either, including a lot of Rangers fans. Nice were terrible, Nice were awful, They're still a Ligue 1 club, but I think there's might still be a feeling that we're due a pounding off somebody to make this more realistic, make this really quite enjoyable, very respectable, quite impressive Europa League group stage campaign of ours. It's like it's due to go pear-shaped. I was expecting to be after the first three games, because Rangers a few times, especially in the Champions League history, we start off in Champions League group stage really well, particularly 2007-2008, we ended up getting to the UEFA Cup final. What did we start off with? Beating VfB Stuttgart. At home, we won away 3-0 in Lyon, and then we drew at home 0-0 with Barcelona, no less. Anti-football, cried Lionel Messi. And then the next three games, disaster. Just pumped, and that was us out into third place. And out. But I thought, well, no, this isn't happening. It's 5 games. We've only lost one of the first 5 games this group stage, but now we're into our last 3 games. We're into that last 3 games stage. So perhaps this is the moment where it starts falling away. Who knows? But I must admit, I am seriously excited about this game. It's tomorrow night, but it'll probably be tonight by the time you actually see this pod of mine. My European preview pod's infamously late and going out, mostly because I just can't calm myself down enough to do the podcast. I mean, where do you start? Tottenham? I mean, just I don't do that thing of loving English clubs. And you can see behind me that the Tottenham stuff, the Tottenham paraphernalia, is perhaps given the lie to that. It was 1981, I would say. We're in the Scottish Cup final, and I'm watching the Scottish Cup final. My uncle's at the game. My auntie's pregnant at this point in time. She's expecting, so she's not gone to this game. So I got into hers. There's to watch it with her on the television. Ian Redford misses the penalty against Dundee United in the last minute. Or Hamish McAlpine saves it, whatever. It's just an absolute... you just gutted. It was the whole thing about the Scottish Cup final with a real... Even just watching the telly, it's all I'd watched it on at that point. I didn't go to my first Scottish Cup final until the following season. Absolutely devastated. I remember saying to my auntie, what's the point of a replay? And she says, well, somebody's got to win it. And I was gutted. And the replay was on the Wednesday night. So at that point in time, I had a wee black... My mum and dad for that Christmas had got me a portable television, but because it was the war years, when I was a young man, when I was like 11, coming on 12 years old as it was a black and white portable, which I loved. I mean, I just, never mind getting your smartphone or whatever, getting a black and white portable television, a TV you could watch up in your room. Phenomenal, just absolutely tremendous, revolutionised my life. And the game has happened a lot in those days when television wasn't covering football, when there's only 2 or 3 live games. Even the replay of the Scottish Cup final wasn't live on telly. So it was that thing you used to do in those days of, I'm going to avoid the score and I'll just watch the highlights, but I was going to watch them in my bed on my black and white portable. And I watched the highlights. So we won 4-1. It was great, but I'm in my bed, my PJs, not cheering, Bobby Russell and David Cooper not scoring these goals against Dundee United, but John McDonald. But it was black and white, and it was recorded highlights. And it was on a tiny wee telly. The next night, the Thursday night, the FA Cup final replay, because oh God, what's his name? I knew I'd forget him. I knew I'd forget it's Scotland International Hutchinson, Kevin Hutchinson. Oh, Kenny Hutchinson. Oh, is it Hutchinson? That's terrible. The big fella, hard as nails. Played until he was about 40. He scored both. He scored for Tottenham and Man City. He was a Man City defender at the time, but he scored for both teams in 1981 FA Cup final. So it went to a replay, and it was on. It was on live, and I watched the big telly downstairs in colour, and it was Tottenham against Man City. Classic FA Cup final replay. Ricky Villa scoring the was it Kevin Power, the guy's name, the Man City player? He scored a goal that was totally brushed off by history. It was an absolute belter of a goal he scored as well. It was a fantastic game, 3-2, really exciting, end to end, blah blah blah. And I ended up getting that Tottenham kit. I think I got it for my birthday. Kind of Lecoq Sportif, just the white with a little deep blue V-neck, the dark blue shorts and the white socks. It's funny, I don't like, because of Celtic probably, I don't like white socks. I certainly don't like to see Rangers wearing white socks, but white socks with a white top, slightly different. It's just a plain white top, and the Spurs strip. But I mean, just about Preston North End. Remember the Invincibles, the first ever league champions in England, first ever double winners in England, Preston North End back in the Victorian period. They, the same kit, the white, blue, white, the England national team, white, that dark blue, and the white socks, dark blue shorts, white socks. And this Tottenham kit, the Lecoq Sportif kit, is absolutely beautiful. And I was on Facebook a wee while ago, a few years back, and a mate of mine, Big Chris, who actually played for Dundee United. I don't know if he got a game for the first team or whatever, a few games for the first team as a sub or whatever. He ended up absolute legend of the Ayrshire Juniors. What have you? We're talking back and forth. I must have mentioned something about Spurs on Facebook, and he get back in touch going, I still remember you turning up at PE with that Tottenham kit on. It's like that's how beautiful it was back in the day for us old men. That old Tottenham kit. It was one of the few times in my life I was actually trendy. And I remember the very first football kit I ever got was the Scotland away kit, never worn from the 1978 World Cup Argentina. No, I wanted the away kit, which was a white top. It was reversed, the white top with the blue, but the dark blue shorts, and it was red socks. I think still red socks. It's white socks with the red Umbro, kind of rhombus diamond thing going round the fold of the socks. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved that. So maybe I just love that kind of that kit. Rangers away kit, 155, our first game in that league campaign. 1-1 nothing at Pataudry, that Ryan Kent goal, beautiful through ball from Alfredo Morelos. I'm getting really carried away here, but that was a very Spurs kit. It could look a bit like Bolton Wanderers on a bad day, but it was very like that, with the white, with the blue, the white. What are Spurs doing with their kit this season? It's breaking my heart. Was it last season as well? I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention to English football now, even though I'm going to tell you about how much I actually love English top flight football. But they've ruined the sleeves. They've got why are they doing coloured sleeves? Why are they doing different coloured sleeves? I mean, Herbert Chapman, anybody? I thought North London Chapman changed the Arsenal kit because he saw a guy in training wearing a bib and he thought, that actually looks quite smart, the different coloured sleeves. So he changed the Arsenal kit for the all red to the white sleeve. Harry Swan copied it for Hibs as well, getting the white sleeves. And I know Tottenham's kit is white, but going with that just doesn't work. It's all right, but it's no Tottenham. It's no classic Tottenham. Sometimes Tottenham have kits that just make me want to cry. They're so beautiful. So I've always had a thing. I'd not always had a thing for Tottenham. I went through a wee phase in the Tottenham team: Steve Archibald, Garth Crooks, Mickey Hazard, Glenn Hoddle. I was a kid at the time. It was very glamorous, very exciting. But then I think around about 1980, I'd also really enjoyed watching Liverpool dominating Europe, etc. Watching them in the telly was very exciting. And then when Everton won the league in 1985, I was going through absolute torture with Rangers at that point, growing kind of pubescent years. You're growing up, your team are awful. They can't win the league, and watching Everton doing it in their Archibald Leach Stadium, with their kind of blue tops, like even though they had the white socks on, I just thought, oh God, Everton are fantastic. And then when Arsenal won the league in 1989, I was like, oh my God, Arsenal are fantastic. I love their defensive thing under George Graham. And then next thing, a decade later, I'm going down to Middlesbrough. Rangers are at the Scottish Cup, and I'm going down to Middlesbrough to see the Arsenal team, the Invincibles, to see Thierry Henry and Gilberto Silva, who I think I actually still to this day actually fancy in a totally sexual, physical way, just a sublimely sexy footballer. Um, so I kind of soon realised that I just love English football. I don't have the partisan thing. It's just I love the whole gamut. I love the English top flight, the bottom flight. I've been to conference games, third. I've seen Carlisle. I've seen the championship games, every tier of English football, didn't it? Well, fifth tier it was, I think. I think maybe I've seen. Anyway, I've seen a lot of tiers of English football. I've seen England national team, been at Wembley plenty of times, and that kind of stuff. Seen England national team at Hampden, obviously. It's just I love all of it. It's something that I can't help. It's just something we all grew up with. Match of the day, etc. There's an article about somebody who loves Scottish football in the latest When Saturday Comes. So I don't know if I'm quoting that. I just glanced through it and I saw that's what it's about. So I'm not trying to plagiarise that. I thought I was plagiarising Daz in the last pod I did with the thing about the what do you call them, the sparklers, the sprinklers. I need the sprinklers because it was all about the pyro at games and a big fake controversy about that on Friday in the media. I was talking about that, and I thought it was quoted. I apologised, and I thought I quoted Daz in the last pod there. I didn't give him credit, so I was kind of plagiarising him. Then Daz got in touch to say that wasn't me, Alec. So apologies to Daz for misquoting him, bringing him to everybody's attention for bogus reasons in the last podcast, and apologies to whoever it was. It did actually say the thing about the sprinkler, twink sparklers that I found really funny in a previous pod and quoted the other day. I also forgot to. I usually do my name, hello, I'm Alec Anderson, and then there'll be a wee song lyric, and I forgot to do that the other day. It was supposed to be Flip on the Telly, Wrestle with Jimmy, something's bubbling behind my back, the bottle was ready to blow, say it ain't so. Your drug is a heartbreaker. Did it say it ain't so? My love is a life taker. So I'm sorry I missed all that as well. But Tottenham, yeah, I absolutely loved Tottenham for just a tiny wee period when I was a kid. But then I realised I loved all of English football because the pain, the proper bitterness, if you like. I just did enough of that with Rangers and Scotland. I couldn't really fake it with anybody else. So I don't really care anymore. But like a couple of years, I bought myself a few pennants as a kid, and I've still got them. I've got scrapbooks full of all my newspaper cuttings back in the day when I was 11, 12. I was doing all this stuff, taking stuff at the newspapers and putting them into scrapbooks. Something we did in the pre-internet age. You see one there that's got a picture of Ajax and also the picture of the Spurs double winning team 1961 that I've cut out of some magazine. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to this game tomorrow. But I think the problem these days is the cross-border thing. It's almost ironic that the proximity geographically of the Scottish top flight and the English top flight is now, it just makes it even. It compounds the financial disparity, the chasm, the opposite sides of a continent, if not opposite sides of the globe in financial terms between the English top flight and the Scottish top flight. And these games that are, as I say, total Spurs and Rangers, each having reached 5 European finals, each being the same city as a club that's won the big one. They were scared it was going to be Arsenal. It turned out it was Chelsea. A couple of times with us at Celtic, that kind of shared sense of glory and ultimate frustration. Doesn't matter. Tomorrow night they go out and they could put 4 or 5 passes, and I could hate Tottenham for the rest of my life. I'm still trying to get over the Liverpool thing. It wasn't Liverpool's fault that they beat us 7-1. What else are they supposed to do if we're completely crap? But it really does. It puts a bit of a downer in things when you see Liverpool. I still get a kind of bristle. And that game when we played Liverpool 2 seasons ago now in the Champions League, I was actually in tears on the Jersnet before we went to Anfield. The first game we played them in that Champions League group stage, before we went to Anfield, I was just discussing it like this, and then I get choked up. I actually was crying. I think Ross was hosting it or something like that. I'm actually going to start crying here, because the thought of seeing my team, shooting towards the famous Anfield Cup, going into the box, try to score a goal into the Cup goal at Anfield, even though it's now all terrace and it's all Norwegians and Swedes and that, they're on the Cup. It's now all seated and what have you. It was just because of everything Liverpool meant to me as a kid, it's just a high bar of European football. I just got so emotional about it. By the time we hadn't got a single shot, we'd never had possession of the ball in the box at the Kop end that we shot into in the first half. We only got beat 2-0 at Anfield, but after that, and then getting scudded 7-1, the biggest doing I've ever seen Rangers taken in my entire life at Ibrox, the romance has been slightly eroded from the Liverpool. There's not quite the mystique of it. I just seen them as being fucking horrible, and it's not their fault. It was Rangers' fault. And so there's a problem. This could happen tomorrow night with Spurs. So excuse me if I enjoy one last moment of feeling quite excited about a game on paper that could turn into an absolute nightmare on the old Grassmaster tomorrow night. Yeah, Rangers weren't. Rangers were the first British club to play in a European final. Alec, why did you not mention that? Well, in 1960 we weren't. It wasn't. I know it's the Fairs Cup. I mean, the first 3 Fairs Cups actually took 5 seasons to complete. That's a different story. London 11 and then Birmingham City twice in a row lost the Fairs Cup final to Barcelona twice and then Roma, respectively. And the third Fairs Cup final was in 1961, the same year we were in the first ever Cup Winners' Cup final. But people are saying, well, that wasn't a competition that was recognised by UEFA. It was actually run by a FIFA committee with Stanley Rouse at the top of it, so it wasn't a European Cup. It was. I know UEFA still don't recognise it. They'll still start the story of the Europa League back at the UEFA Cup with that very first UEFA Cup final when Spurs beat Wolves in 1972. So Spurs won a European trophy in the same season as well. The links are quite amazing, even if they are just coincidences. They don't recognise the Fairs Cup, but that you're taking away Newcastle and Leeds United's only European trophies, for example, Dinamo Zagreb. You can't do that. It was European competition. It got the attention. Celtic's first game in Europe was against Valencia, I'm sure, in the Fairs Cup. So you'd be taking that from them. You'd be taking a whole lot of European history from Dunfermline. A massive achievement in beating Everton, one of those rare occasions. I think was it the Cup Winners' Cup? I think it was the Fairs Cup that Dunfermline beat Everton. Jock Stein was the manager. First time a sweeper was ever used in European football. Done at Goodison by Dunfermline. But one of the rare occasions where a Scottish team beat an English team back in the day, back in the 60s. This is the 9th time we've played an English club, and we've only won 2 of the previous 8 ties against English clubs. So we've only won a quarter of them, even in the days when the financial disparity wasn't anywhere near as pronounced as it is now between North and South. So yeah, but for me, we reached the first European final, first British club to reach a European final recognised by UEFA. Well, even when we played that Cup Winners' Cup final in 61, it wasn't sanctioned by UEFA. It only got sanctioned by UEFA because Fiorentina won it, because he beat us in that final. And you know what the Italians are like, they have to just keep pushing things until we got in Artemio Franchi, the stadium, Florence, is named after Artemio Franchi, who was a big wig, a big operator with, I think it was FIFA actually, and UEFA. So he made damn sure that UEFA then recognised the Cup Winners' Cup after Fiorentina had won it. But it's still a massive achievement for us. Ourselves and Tottenham got a fantastic history in European football. Yeah, I should probably talk about the game itself. I mean, the first game we've played this calendar year, 2024, in European football was against Benfica. And this is the last game we're playing this calendar year, is against Tottenham, and Benfica played Tottenham in the 1962 61-62 season European Cup semi-final, and Benfica come out on top. The famous Bela Gutmann Benfica. The last time Benfica won anything in Europe, they won that season's European Cup final, a masterful 5-3 win over Real Madrid in Amsterdam, probably the second or third greatest European final ever played. But they beat Tottenham in the semi-final, and again, that had me feeling, even as I was growing up as a kid reading about this, I knew Rangers had been pounded in the 1960 European Cup semi-final, but at that point in time, there was it got to 2004, and Chelsea reached the semi-final. The Cup Winners' Cup lost to Monaco, and that put London in the same billing as Glasgow and Dundee, because at one point Scotland was the only country in the world, and this is quite a tenuous one, Scotland was the only country in the world that had 2 different cities, more than one city, and in each of those cities there was more than one club that reached the semi-finals of the European Cup or the Champions League. Dundee and Dundee United both reached in the semi-final. It was 62-63, Dundee lost to AC Milan in the semi-finals of the European Cup, and 83-84 that Dundee United lost to Roma in the semi-finals of the European Cup. And of course you had Celtic reaching 2 European Cup finals, and they lost another 2 other semi-finals as well. And Rangers had reached the semi-finals in 1960 and also were a goal away for the final in this new kind of quarter-final group stage thing, effectively a goal away from the final in the 92-93 Champions League, the first ever Champions League. So it was an amazing claim by Scotland, because you think about it, like, you're thinking, well, Spain, surely, Madrid, both the big Madrid teams, Atletico and Real, have met, and they've met in the final of the European Cup / Champions League, but no other city in Spain has had 2 clubs that have got to the semis. You know, I mean, Valencia have got to the Champions League final twice, but Levante have got nowhere near it. Like Juventus in Italy have multiple finals of the European Cup, Champions League. Torino have never got to the semi-finals. You know, both Milan clubs have managed it. So there's Milan have got two clubs, and they've met in the semi-final of the Champions League. Both Milan clubs, the big Milan clubs, but no other city. And on it goes. You think about it, you think it. But London, and now Arsenal as well, and then Manchester joined in when Man City, finally made some of their money start paying for them, but they started reaching Champions League semi-finals, and eventually they won the thing a couple of seasons ago. So it's Scotland and England are the only 2 countries to have more than one city, each of which can say they've got a club that's reached the semi-finals at least of the European Cup or Champions League. And Tottenham, again, I felt that link with them as a Rangers man because of that. I don't know if Tottenham will wear that kit. They've got a kind of, it's like green, but it's kind of like camouflage. It's almost kind of militaristic. Maybe they'll wear that tonight, tomorrow night, depending on when you listen to this. Who knows? But the one I always loved with Tottenham was the light blue, the really pale blue. It's kind of sky blue almost. But it wasn't just Coventry. It wasn't Man City. It was just something a bit classier, because it always is with Tottenham with their kits. It was the Holston sponsorship. It's just gone to Hummel in the kind of mid-80s, 86, 87. They wore the home version when they lost to Coventry in the 87 FA Cup final, I think. So that was beautiful. Like Lecoq Sportif version they wore in the first leg against Anderlecht of the 1984 UEFA Cup, which they won. Graham Roberts scoring in the second leg at White Hart Lane, and it going to the penalty shootout and Spurs winning it. The goalkeeper who ended up at Falkirk, what was the boy's name? That's terrible. I can't remember his name, but Spurs won it in penalties. I have to mention that Spurs have actually won 2 European trophies, and they lost the 74 UEFA Cup final to Feyenoord. They won the Continental Cup final in 63. They won 3. They won 3 European finals, and the other one they lost, of course, was when they got to the Champions League final in 2019. They lost 2019 Champions League final to Liverpool, of all teams, in Madrid. In Atletico Madrid Stadium, Atletico Madrid being the team that they beat in their first European final back in 63. And it was a major thing in 63 when Spurs beat Atletico Madrid 5-1 in De Kuip, Rotterdam, a stadium I've done a tour of. They beat them there 5-1. Jimmy Greaves scoring a couple of goals in the final again, as hopefully I mentioned earlier. The famous John White, Greaves and White, they both scored against Rangers in that tie earlier in that competition in the second round. But Cliff Jones was wearing number 7 he's playing number 7 for Tottenham, and in those days it was absolutely mind-bending that there was what was the guy's name? Javier Jones. There was a Spanish fella called Jones, but it was spelled Jones, that was playing number 7 for Atletico Madrid. And this was like mine, but this was like a kind of barroom trivia question. Even when I was growing up, I was into my 20s before, lovely. Starting with Tottenham, really. I know Sheffield United had a few Argentinian players in the 70s, but Tottenham brought in Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky Villa. The Argentinian World Cup winning international midfielder Osvaldo Cesar Diaz is pointing himself in the general direction of the exhibition in Empire Stadium, but his movement towards it has been afflicted by a slight kind of tremor in the area of his patella. You know, come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if he comes round here. I've got my beer on the sideboard here. Let Big Phil sort out Ange if he comes round here. What was I talking about? I was talking about European finals. I was talking about Madrid's. Aye, it was. We beat Sevilla in the first round. We beat them 4-0 at Ibrox and we lost 2-0 in the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan in the first round of the 62-63 European Cup Winners' Cup. And then we met Spurs the next game. And we scored 2 goals at White Hart Lane and we scored 2 goals at Ibrox. And at that point in time, White Hart Lane, all 4 sides of it, including the shelf that I never got to stand on. I never got to White Hart Lane. Heartbreaking things in my life. It was all Archibald Leach. It was all Archibald Leach designed, and the stand above the shelf, basically a 3-tier mega structure. In the day 2, massive enclosure, then an enclosure on stilts behind that enclosure. You know, almost more castle-like than the nearby Bruce Castle. It's in the Tottenham area, and the stand on top of it had the kind of lattice work, but it was just straight lines, that feature that we've got, crisscross balcony, and the main stand at Ibrox is the 2 stadiums were Archibald Leach designed, and here with these teams 62 and a half years after Ibrox was built, and 62 and a half years before tomorrow night's game meeting in European competition. We scored twice at White Hart Lane, we scored twice at Ibrox, but we got absolutely pumped because Spurs scored 5 times at White Hart Lane, and they scored 3 times at Ibrox. Jimmy Greaves and Ralph Brand scoring for each team in both legs, as far as I know. 60,000 almost at White Hart Lane, like 58,000 odds, 78,000 odds at Ibrox. It was big. It was a big glamorous showpiece game in those days. Spurs in their all white European kit, the classic European kit. I hope that's what they're wearing tomorrow night, all white, or as all white as they can manage with those goddamn sleeves. Applauding us off the pitch at Ibrox in a really sporting manner, but they properly beat us home and away. The only previous clash between Rangers and Spurs in Europe. I think there was Bobby Shearer scored their own goal at White Hart Lane. Davy Wilson scored. The legendary John White, Scotland international John White, he scored. I think he scored at White Hart Lane against us. It was scored in the final against Atletico Madrid. Taken far too soon, that man. Absolute legend. And yeah, I think Jimmy Greaves scored twice down at White Hart Lane as well. He certainly scored. He will have scored home and away. But it was Bobby Smith. He scored a couple of goals at Ibrox, and that's the bastard who broke Eric Caldo's leg later on that season, at the end of that season in the Scotland-England game at Wembley, and told Dennis Law before the game he was going to break somebody's leg. He just decided it was Eric Caldo, and basically ruined Eric Caldo's career. Fucking sickening. So he's the third, after Harry Kane and Jimmy Greaves. Bobby Smith is Tottenham's all-time top scorer. Top scorer on the season. They won the double in '61. The last year they actually won the league title. Last time they were champions of England, 1961. But that bastard can fuck off, as far as I'm concerned, for basically ruining the career of Eric Caldo, who could probably have gone on to be the most capped Scotland player of all time at that point. Never mind the most capped Rangers player for Scotland in that era, if his career hadn't been cut so short by that horrific tackle. Although Jim Baxter took a bit of revenge on the day by helping 10-man Scotland win the game 2-1 against England at Wembley. But yeah, Tottenham, the thing was when they won the FA Cup in 1901, the first non-league team, the only non-league team, I would imagine, to win the FA Cup, as it was back then. The non-league was playing at that kind of level. And I think they won it. Did they win the FA Cup in 1921 as well? And then they won the league for the first time in 1951, Tottenham. Then they won the league again in 1961, but they also won the FA Cup that year. Then they won the League Cup in 1971. They won the FA Cup in 62 and 67 as well, I think. But they won the League Cup in 71, then they won the FA Cup in 1981, that great replayed game, and they won the FA Cup in 1991 as well, beating Nottingham Forest. So that was a 21st century, that just stopped. But Tottenham always winning something a year, ending in one, was a thing that I grew up with, a bit of magic that they seemed to push through. And they won the double in 61. They were the first English side in the 20th century to win the league and cup. It used to be a big thing to be able to win the league and the FA Cup. No longer, just became kind of standard. Arsenal did it 10 years later, just to kind of sicken them. Of course, it had to be Arsenal being the next ones to do it, but I've seen, Man U, Liverpool, have Chelsea done it? I don't know, but they probably will have. Man City won the treble in 2019, and it was so unremarked upon. It was a massive moment for me as an adult, realising constantly talking about how much football's moved on since I was a kid. But when Manchester City won the domestic treble, it was a thing that happened rarely enough in Scotland when I was a kid. But the thought of it happening in England, where I'd never seen the double being won until 1986. I just thought if somebody, an English club, actually won a treble, that would be mind blowing, because of the depth, the quality that there is in the English game, and it's still there, the size and the scope of the clubs that they have in their top flight. But by the time Manchester City did it in 2019, everybody seems to have kind of moved on. It's all about the Champions League and just the Premier League. That's all anybody's really interested in down south. And I think Spurs are as much a part of that in the way that they've rebuilt their stadium. And I know the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium kind of slightly overlaps White Hart Lane. My sister, as I may have mentioned before, worked for Ladbrokes, supervising in Glasgow and all that. She moved into London with them. And I remember her phoning me from White Hart Lane just to say she was working in the concession, the Ladbrokes concession in White Hart Lane. And I was saying, I'm in White Hart Lane here. And I just, I need to get there one day. I never got to White Hart Lane. I never got to Highbury. I've still never seen Tottenham at home. I've still not been to the new Tottenham Stadium, but I've got plenty of time for that. The interest isn't the same, of course, because of my era. And I grew up when Scottish, Parkhead, Hampden, and Ibrox were the biggest grounds in Britain. But because of the Ibrox disaster, which happened when I was 2 years old, that was all coming to an end. Grounds were getting, and then Heysel came in. Heysel. We had Heysel in '85, but they made the Hillsborough disaster in 1989, and the Taylor report thereafter. But Rangers had got ahead of that because of the Ibrox disaster, and we had this magnificent stadium already by the early '80s. But like White Hart Lane was one of those grounds that was still basically the ground it had been in the Victorian period, and it was just see it on the television, thought I need to get there. Let's say in that same footprint, White Hart Lane that ended up holding about 30 odd thousand. There'd been 60,000 there when we played the Tottenham in the Cup Winners' Cup, and I wanted to get on the shelf. I had to sit, even when it was seated. When they were starting to, I think when they were starting to build the back end of the Tottenham Stadium, and they had to knock down one end of White Hart Lane. You could see the shelf was still there with the seats. And I can't remember what the game was. It was a midweek game. I think it was a League Cup game or something. I had a ticket booked, but I couldn't get flights or something. Something went wrong. And then COVID came in. I had to make a choice. I ended up getting to West Ham. I got to Upton Park before it get flattened, and West Ham moved. So I got to Upton Park, one of those grounds I'd seen in the telly forever. I'd been to Old Trafford, I'd been to Anfield, but I never got to White Hart Lane. I eventually went to see Arsenal again. My sister was wanting down in London. She got us the tickets and that. Went to see Arsenal at the Emirates, but I never saw them at Highbury, another ground that I grew up with. Seeing on the television, thinking that looks magical. But at least there is the remnants of Highbury. The architecture of Highbury is still there, and the flats that it got turned into, you could see bits of it. It was quite unsettling, to be honest. But it never happened. I never got to White Hart Lane. In fact, the only time for all that I love, Tottenham when I was a kid and what have you, the only time I've ever saw Tottenham, I've only seen them once before, and that was in 1986, and it was a friendly at Ibrox, and there was just 12,500 there. April 1986. I'm sure it was the weekend of the Scottish Cup semi-finals, and Rangers were well out of at that point. Were well out of everything, and it was Jock Wallace's last game in charge of Rangers at the end of his second spell. We lost 2-0 that day. It was also the first day, incidentally, that I heard the Super Ali, away, away, away. And I'm sure it was my mate Gary Bell. He claims he invented it, and I believe him. I believe I think he did. That was the first time I ever heard it. But the next day, my life totally changed. Every Rangers supporter's life totally changed. The next day, it was announced that Jock Wallace had been sacked, and Graham Souness, Graham Souness, whose career started at Spurs, was taken over as Rangers manager. The Souness revolution had begun, and I think that whole period really ended at the City of Manchester Stadium. Reached its apogee at the City of Manchester Stadium, where we again an English league ground, where we got to the European final. That part of my life where I'd seen Rangers doing everything really I needed them to do except getting to a European final, and I was down there for that game. I was at that game at an English ground, and that kind of started. It was bookended by English clubs in their own way, and it was Tottenham at Ibrox. They beat us 2-0. I can't even remember who scored the goals. It's a really nondescript game, but that day I know I would be quite happy to have the anorak tick of seeing Tottenham in the flesh, but it didn't really matter to me. And then we signed Terry Butcher, and my mates that summer just jumped on the bus and went down to the pre-season friendly at White Hart Lane, and what was I doing? I can't remember. I couldn't go. And they were coming back and they're telling us all about the great fun they'd had down there. And Terry Butcher was in the papers talking about how he'd only just signed for us. He wasn't playing in the game, but he'd spent the whole time sitting in the away bench at White Hart Lane. And he was Rangers shirt and tie, just watching. So I couldn't watch the game. I was just watching the Rangers fans in the away end at White Hart Lane, the noise they were making, the colour and all that. I thought, I can't wait to play for this club. Played Tottenham in various friendlies. And I didn't even make the friendly. We played them a couple of pre-seasons ago. Harry Kane scoring 2 goals to cancel out a Tony Cholak opener. We'd beaten West Ham 3-1, I think the friendly match before that at Ibrox. But we couldn't beat the Spurs. They beat us 2-1, but Harry Kane is no more at Tottenham. It's just it's a game I just can't wait. I can't wait. For some reason, I said I've only seen Spurs the one time. I've never got White Hart Lane. It's a massive regret in my life. But I think that, I say, Tottenham going from that kind of higgledy-piggledy, ramshackle stadium, but all the time knowing they were one of the most massive clubs in Britain, and then moving to this team that's just a bit bigger and just a bit better than Arsenal's Emirates. It turned them into something different, and it's probably taken away a bit of their character. I know Daniel Levy's been trying for ages through White Hart Lane and what have you to turn them into the champions of England again, make them realise their full potential. But it's quite an amazing thing that Tottenham have only been champions of England twice. Do you know that when they won the league in 1961, 1951, the first time of the 2 times they've been champions of England, Spurs had got promoted the season before. They won the second division in 1950, and then they won the first division, the old first division, in 1951. And Alf Ramsey was playing right back for them, future England World Cup winning manager. Alf Ramsey started his managerial career. He took Ipswich from the third division to I think it was regional in the third division, and he won the second division with Ipswich in 1960, and he won 1961 I think it was, and then he won the top flight with Ipswich in 1962. So that's quite, as player and manager, he's won the second tier and the first tier in successive seasons in England. He's probably still remembered for winning the World Cup, if you want to be picky about it, but that's it. Tottenham of late, I think it sums up this whole kind of, they're mega club, they're realising their financial potential. Tottenham, it's a bit like Liverpool expanding Anfield to hold nearly 60,000, I think it is, now since they built up the Anfield Road end. Anfield, the first time I went there, legendary place, I had to go and stand in the Kop before that got shut down, and I managed that. Unbelievably pokey wee stadium. That's the great thing about it. I've been to Goodison, so I don't need to worry about that, the fact they've left, but they'll go to is it 55,000 or something I think the new place holds. You've got Man City expanding the Etihad up to 60,000, of course Arsenal 60,000, West Ham 60,000, and it's great that they're maximising their potential in this day of the mass marketing of football, but it kind of takes away from, that's me showing my age here, it does kind of take away a bit of the character of these clubs. Rangers have always been massive in a top-heavy, really, really top-heavy division. So I don't think we've changed as much. If anything, we've taken the capacity of Ibrox down. We've kind of half the capacity of Ibrox over the decades. But it's kind of weird to see places that used to hold 60,000 in Terracing now holding them 60,000 all seated, and you got White Hart Lane is hosting NFL games and all sorts of concerts and that, I would imagine, as well, and a real money-making machine. And it kind of distracts from what they were. I didn't get to see, one of my biggest regrets is not getting to see Stoke City, because my sister, who seems to be the only person that could get me to an English game, she was it was a polytechnic at the time, Staffordshire Polytechnic, just as it turned to, she was still there when it turned to, it became a university. She was studying down there, which basically in Stoke. So I would go down there and visit her, and from there we went to Anfield, and we went to Old Trafford, and we went to Villa Park. I stood in the Holt end before that. That was a dream. I was just old enough to kind of make a few of my childhood dreams come true, standing in various epic English terraces. But before all the grounds get seated, but right across the road, I mean, it was across the road was Victoria Park. No, the Victoria Ground, sorry, Victoria. I'm just getting obsessed with Ross County on Sunday. The Victoria Ground was Stoke City's previous ground, where Stanley Matthews had played from, what have you, and it's an amazing stadium, amazing ground, proper terraces at both ends and closures, little nooks and little bends of terrace, and one roofed, one not roofed. It was like the perfect kind of, if you were to have too much cheese and have a dream at night about how the grounds used to be, and they were dangerous. There's no getting away from that. We Ibrox knows better than anybody else about the dangers of having everybody standing or moving on their feet at one time, and what have you, at a football stadium. Fatal. But there's no doubting it was also a pretty unique atmosphere. It made grounds kind of magical in a different way. From just now, it's like admiring a massive skyscraper or something. All these new modern stadiums, it's difficult to retain real character. But when I look back on it, I think the Kippax, Man City's. I never got to Main Road. I would love to have gone to the Kippax. It's amazing looking terrace. I would love to have gone on the old, is it the East Terrace at Huddersfield? It looked monstrous at Huddersfield's old Leeds Road ground, and they've a beautiful. They're one of the clubs that's moved to a new stadium and made it a beautiful, an artful thing almost. But the Victoria ground, Stoke City, just seemed to have absolutely everything. Cops, enclosures, little stands, big stand, everything you could possibly want from an old style football in the good old days type stadium. And I 3 times I must have went to visit my sister, and we went to big English ground. We went to First Division Premier League English grounds from her flat, and we didn't go to the Victoria ground, which is literally right across the road from where she stayed, and it is now no more. So I think Spurs, their change kind of sums up the sadness that I have about the way football has evolved, which is also a way it has to evolve. I mean, we kind of have people standing in terraces and that these days, but we're making a lot of money, and that's why Ange Postecoglou is, of course, under a bit of pressure with them right now. He came in at the beginning of last season, where I think they'd finished 11th or something like that, under, Antonio Conte, but there's a few caretaker managers when Conte left a bit early, and then Ange comes in, brings that kind of all-out attack style of football that we suffered from when he was Celtic manager. He brings that to White Hart Lane. It's a Tottenham stadium, and they're fantastic. They finished 5th, just 2 points outside the Champions League qualifying positions, and that's why they're straight into this Europa League group stage, where we'll be playing them tonight. And this season, though, it's kind of gone a bit backwards. He's starting to get a bit found out, as they're saying down south. He's in the same. It's kind of split personality. He's beaten Aston Villa. They're doing really well. He's one of the teams who did qualify for the Champions League last season. He's beaten Aston Villa. He's thrashed both Manchester teams in Manchester, and he's also beat Man City in the League Cup at Tottenham. But he's lost away to Brighton and Hove Albion and to Bournemouth and Boscombe. So that's 4 teams he's lost to away from home for smaller sides, and there was a lot of aggro after the Bournemouth one amongst the Tottenham support. They've had enough, and then of course some of the newer faces, or old faces, that were turning up at the press conference today. The pre-match presser were trying to get Tav. Your brother Marcus, were you talking to him after because Marcus obviously plays for Bournemouth. Yeah, he was saying, Tav's just gone, I was saying he should have scored a couple of goals, I was slagging my brother the way brothers will slag each other, but the media, the hacks are wanting them to say, Marcus said they're piss easy, and we'll have absolutely no problems beating them, or he gave us a few secrets about how to beat them, and it will need to be some secrets, because Bournemouth squad would probably wipe the floor with Rangers over 3 or 4 games these days. The money in English Premier League is absolutely incredible, and that's why I don't really get the. So that's why. Sorry, that's to finish that point. That's why Postecoglou is under pressure just now. Spurs currently 11th, so they're just in at the bottom half of the top flight. They're still in the League Cup, but they have bigger ambitions in this Tottenham, and our manager was getting a bit of pressure as well. I think he tried to not backtrack but explain himself today about his post-match comments, and Dingwall was standing on the Victoria Park pitch after his club had won 3-0, looking forward to these 2 massive games. And everybody keeps treating them as a package, 2 games. I don't want to give our manager any advice, but I think the best thing to do is don't play Tottenham and Celtic at the same time. Play them one game after the other. I think he's got that message. But he mentioned something about that there's a massive financial gap between the clubs, the 2 clubs he's going to be playing. 2 clubs that, 2 managers that both deserted Celtic for the riches of the English Premier League, just kind of proven that. But Celtic themselves, he's saying, have a massive financial gap. Some Rangers fans want to construe that as a cop-out, something you don't say. I think he's got a hard time for it. He'd mentioned 2012 as well a few times in his, but somebody's got to bloody mention 2012, because that's the main thing that's dragging us back constantly. We're still trying to recover from it, so that's the kind of context that we need when we're judging how well Rangers are doing. We don't want to be sacking anybody too quickly when it's still 1981. 1981 was when we played the Scottish Cup final, and I fell in love with Spurs. But it's still 2012 seems to be holding us back constantly. It's going to take, as I say, I think it's going to be into the 2030s before we really get over it. So we need to keep applying that to him. But the problem for Philip Clement is he's not got that clout. He's not got the credit in the bank, as he would say, amongst the Rangers support. He hasn't won the league, so he's not allowed to say things that other Rangers managers could say, no problem. I mean, Walter Smith famously called out the fact that the bank owned Rangers and we couldn't buy any new players. It was October 2009 after that draw with Hibs, and that was what we're going to win 3 in a row. Or, no, he'd already won 1 and he was going to win 3 in a row, and he just reached a European final, and Walter was Walter. He'd had his first period as well. We loved him, so he could do that kind of Willie Waddle thing of just being bigger than the board, because the board had shut off and been. David Murray had decided he had to go and try and tie up his businesses during the global financial crisis, so he'd stepped in as chairman, and Walter just kind of stood up and was that figurehead. And I think Clement, again, a reason he's been given this extension to his contract, he's trying to do the same thing. He's trying to do the same thing, but he's doing it with zero credit in the bank, according to the Rangers supporters. Or the more knee-jerk of the Rangers support, I think he does have credit in the bank. But he was saying, yeah, these two clubs are playing, I've got more money than us, and it's, that's a cop-out, why is he doing that? He did the same thing this time last year, this very same thing in the very same circumstances this very time last year. We just won 3 straight league games in the space of a week, and we were heading into 2 massive games, Thursday, Sunday, against a really famous green and white team from a green and white stadium, and a team who'd won the European Cup Winners' Cup in a year ending in 3. This time it was the other way about. It was Aberdeen at Hampden in the League Cup final, and it was Real Betis in their original Celtic kits in Seville. And he was talking at that time, we'd messed up in the previous game in Europe, the home draw with Aris Limassol. And he was talking about how, well, Jose Mourinho has got a tattoo of the Conference League on his arm. So it's obviously, don't be too worried about falling into the Conference League. Folk were going mental. But it's embarrassing enough that we're not in the Champions League, and you're talking about how it's going to be okay. You've messed this up. We could have qualified easy for the next round of the Europa League if we'd beaten Aris Limassol like what we were supposed to do. But then we went and beat Real Betis. You can't tell if he's prepping the players to let the team, to relax them and let them know it's going to be okay, just to go in there with kind of relaxed frame of mind, or if he's trying to get his excuses in early, as the most suspicious amongst us would think. He's saying it's free hits. The next 2 games in the Europa League are free hits, Spurs and Man United, because of the size of the clubs, the money that Spurs and Man U have got. I don't think anybody could deny that is a fact. And I have absolutely zero problem whatsoever with what he was saying, because it has worked before. We've got to split up these games. I mean, this was Heat. If this was the movie Heat, for example, starring De Niro and Pacino, this has got to be the moment where Kelso has given Neil McCauley the bank package. It's clean and low 8 figures. Do you know what's that bit? Do you know what's the bit when Neil McCauley with De Niro, right after the security truck robbery, where they get the bearer bonds, and he goes to meet Nate. I know it's John Voight, and De Niro and John Voight are the opposite scales of personal politics in America, but no, John Voight's absolutely fantastic in that film. Basically playing Artie Bunker, but he's playing Nate, the kind of middleman, the fence, and he's got the bearer bonds, and he's saying to him, the bearer bonds, actually, these, who owns these? It's Malibu Equity and Investments, Roger Van Zant. And he was like, so what, he's got insurance, doesn't he? Aye, that's the point. He collects 100% of the insurance, so he's a player. He's basically launders drug money. So if you get in touch with him and you can say, I'll give you back, I'll take 60 cents on the dollar, I'll sell you these back, because they're bearer bonds, you can still, if you own them, you've got the money. That's another 40% for you on top of the fact that you've already stole these bearer bonds. And he's, all right, I try it on. It's all right, so good. You see me take the face off me there as if you weren't interested in that. No, but you want to date? I will date then. And then the next line Nate says to him is, Kelso got in touch. He wants to know if you're interested in a score that he's putting it. Neil McCauley, played by De Niro. What do I need his score for? I've got my own score. He says it's clean and low 8 figures. It's going to be like minimum $10 million. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Oh, you want to meet him as well, do you? Oh, because you see me take the face off me there when I suggested that as well. It's like, but anyway, they go and they get Kelso, and so they've got the precious metals depository job, and then they've got the bank job coming up after it. And I feel as if that's Neil's crew. I feel that's where we are just now. They both go wrong in their own ways, those various jobs, but I feel we're at that point where there's these 2 massive gigs waiting to go down, but keeping it De Niro, flipping it to Scorsese. I think you look at Scorsese's use of weird insults, in a couple of his films. Maybe it's in more of his films than I can remember, but the two I will remember because Raging Bull's been on recently. It's just, I watch it again, I still get more out of it every time. Raging Bull might be the greatest film ever made. You get Joe Pesci saying, Joe Pesci playing his brother, and De Niro's Jake LaMotta. De Niro playing Jake LaMotta, talking about the fact he's get suspended by the board because he took a dive for the mafia, so the mafia could make some money off him. So he deliberately lost a fight, And he said it makes me look like a mama look. And Joe Pesci, what? It makes me look like the mama look of the year. And it's obviously like, what is a mama look? But they don't actually go in and say that, because it's just two brothers talking, and he's moaning about somebody else, somebody that's not in the room. Whereas in Main Streets, De Niro's in the crowd with Harvey Keitel that goes down to help out the boy collect some of his protection money for a pool hall, and it turns into a big comedy fight. It's a big comedy fight where all the guys in the pool hall are chasing De Niro and that. He's up on the table with the pool cue and it's the police come in and break it up and they all run away. They're just all young guys. That's the whole point of it. But the fight starts when the guy who's supposed to be paying the protection money just goes, nah, I'm not giving you any money because this guy looks like a mook. And they're like, what? What's a mook? Aye, he looks like a total mook. What's a mook? No, mama, look, mook. And it must be something, this is a Scorsese film, must be a Scorsese thing where he must hear these insults in Little Italy and that when he's grown up in New York and he doesn't actually know what they are. And he's just put that in his films. Just the way I say it, when I don't know something, I put it in my pods, But for me, it's the same thing. But I think that's how Rangers should treat these games. Where a Main Streets, it's a comedy battle. It's still a fight. It's still a square goal. You're going to get ripped in. Guy calls you a mook. You get that insult. Get some insults for Celtic fans. You're like, what? What are you talking about? You just know. What are you saying about the tax man? What are you saying about patterns of assistance and the ridding the fold over socks is Fenian blood? It's a governing borough socks. Everybody will run black socks Victorian. What are you talking about? And you get insults and you're like, what? But it's a fight. You just got to get it on, whether the insult's right or not. Whereas we Tottenham, I feel that's more the Raging Bull bit, where it's two brothers. They have their differences in that, but essentially they're on the same side. They're just actually wondering what the insult is. So I think it's the Mameluke battle the night Thursday night with Tottenham. My God, I'm rambling. I'm not going to apologise. I'm sorry, not sorry. Did I mention everything I want to say about English clubs? Probably not. That would take me 24 hours. But the idea is Paul Merson. I didn't actually see the rant on Sky. No doubt it's one of the plastic rants for likes and clicks and what have you. But I saw the headline that Postecoglou, having been 2-0 up after 11 minutes to Chelsea and losing the game 4-3, going down 4-2 and pulling one back in injury time eventually. That was a joke because he's playing this open, expansive, all-out attack football. They're leaving massive spaces at the back. And he's saying that might have worked in Scotland, but you're not. And I think the quote I saw was, he needs to learn that he's not playing against Kilmarnock and St Mirren. Now, we've played against Kilmarnock and St Mirren this season. The idea is that Rangers, we can steam in there then, because they're wide open at the back and all that. The first 11 minutes of that game, I watched the highlights match of the day too. The first 11 minutes of that game just looked like Postecoglou at Parkhead against us. They're 2 goals up early on and there's 60,000 folk going mental. It looked absolutely the same. We're no Chelsea, but we have played Kilmarnock and albeit we pasted Kilmarnock last time we played them. The first time we played them, they beat us 1-0. And St Mirren we beat 2-1, but it was a struggle. So Chelsea have got a guy scoring 2 goals, 2 penalties the other day who scored in the final of the final of the European Championships in the summer. Cucurella playing for Chelsea, he goes down injured. That's what Borna Barisic should have done. The times he went 3-0 and 4-0 down to Postecoglou Celtic at Park. Barisic just sat down and said, it's my boots. Went off, changed his boots, and that was it. You come back out and you have the comeback. You score 4 goals straight. But he won that European Championship final. He beat Cole Palmer's team, England. He won years with Spain. They've got what's the guy? Enzo Fernandez, not an actual World Cup winner with Argentina. We Jadon Sancho and stuff like that. We are not Chelsea. And Tottenham, long before Ange Postecoglou was at Tottenham, their record against Chelsea is horrific. It's like mythically bad, Tottenham's record against Chelsea. So Ange is just getting himself kind of caught up in that. And also, when he went 2-0 up, Christian Romero, one of their players who has won the World Cup, centre-half with Argentina, in that 2022 final against France. He played the whole game. And it's a guy that I'm sad. It's good for Rangers that he's not playing tomorrow night. But I would like to have seen him. I'd like to see a guy of that quality playing against. I'd like to see him at Ibrox. That's what Europe is still about for me. That's what I say. As long as you don't get horsed, it's still about the glamour. It's a prize in itself, European football. We see everything as a process these days, and I think, no, this is magical to see Tottenham. I know they're great players. Just to see Tottenham, the club, I don't really know that much about their squad and that these days, but to see him at Ibrox is phenomenal. I'd like to have seen Christian Numerical, but he went off injured at 2-0 up. And that's really ruined their chi, ruined their flow. So I wouldn't be reading too much into the fact that Tottenham are having a bad time in certain games this season. So they horsed Man City. It might have been the start of Man City, or the official stamping of the fact that Man City are having a terrible season, that they won't be defending their title for a fifth season in a row, or defending it for a fourth season in a row. But it was it's still amazing to beat Man City 4-0 at the Etihad. It was quite the statement. So they are capable of taking us to pieces. What have they got? I mean, Son Heung-min is probably the most famous player they have just now. Dominic, South Korea international. You get Dominic Solanke, who's played for England and what have you. Great career at Bournemouth. Fraser Foster, the ghost of Old Firm League Cup finals past, totally haunting us. That penalty save in Morelos, it cost the 2019-2020 League Cup final as much as the offside goal they scored in that one. Timo Werner, he's on loan, back on loan, having kind of failed at Chelsea. He's now back on loan from his alma mater, RB Leipzig. So I've always felt as if Timo Werner, but I think we kept getting close to kind of playing against Timo Werner in Europe, so no doubt he'll do the damage. Brennan Johnson, the Welsh fella, he's been scoring goals for them in this tournament, in this Europa League group stage, as has Senegal's, I'm going to say, Pape Matar Sarr, midfielder. Richarlison, the famous Brazil, is he Everton? Is he injured? I don't think he's about just now, is he? Bentancur, the Uruguayan, he was banned from English football for making a racist reference to his teammate Son Heung-min, who didn't mind, who stuck up for the guy. After it, I'm not doing an anti-woke thing there. I think it was nicely handled, classily handled by Son, but it was something that has to be. You can't have this kind of crap. It leads to a whole lot of subjugation of people. James Maddison, is he injured as well? Postecoglou just talking about he doesn't have any centre halves, and there's a whole lot of injuries. The squad's really light. He could be trying to play us, but I think it is a fact. We Tottenham just now. James Maddison, talking of guys in the Tottenham team who we should know other than Postecoglou, scoring a last-minute winner against us from a free kick when he was on loan at Pataudry, and that was a horrible Sunday, that one. So there's plenty of bad memories within that Tottenham squad for us, plenty of things to be afraid of. So far in this group stage, they beat Karabag at home. I think it was at 3-0 or something like that. They won by 2-1 at Ferencváros in Budapest. So if it's any kind of judge, any kind of guide, Nice, who we cuffed 4-1, they lost by a single goal to Ferencváros in Budapest. So Spurs are at least better than that. Yeah, I think a lot of people think everybody's better than Nice just now. They beat AZ at home, I think, by a 1-0. So decent results there. And then they lost to Galatasaray. One of the journalists today is kind of saying I think it was to Tav, Tottenham lost to Galatasaray, almost like they shat themselves in the atmosphere in Istanbul. Can you be as mental as Istanbul? Can it be as mental as Galatasaray? Hear the atmosphere at Ibrox, Tav wasn't having it. But yeah, so maybe they do shake under the pressure of a big crowd, but I think that kind of thing can be overstated. And they drew at home with Jose Mourinho, ex-Tottenham manager Jose Mourinho's Roma. Although it's no Jose Mourinho's, he's in Fenerbahce. But they drew with Roma, Mats Hummels, who must be 108 years old, who, after Ryan Kent took him to pieces in that brilliant match in the Westfalen for us in 2021-2022, he equalised in injury time for that one. That was a 2-each draw. So they're on exactly the same points as us. They are one place below us. We're in 8th place. We're in the last of the automatic qualification for the round of 16 places. Tottenham are in the first of the automatic qualification for the round of 32 playoff places. So they'll obviously be hoping to jump over us, and I think it's as much the last place in the world that Postecoglou wants to be coming to as it is probably the best place in the world for him to come to. He knows Rangers. I know he only won once at Ibrox, but I do think that game, when he was at Celtic, they do that game. We lost them 3-0. Well, both sides had players missing that day. I don't really think it was a gimme by Celtic. So I'm I'm just really looking forward to it. I cannot wait for this game, and I just hope I'm not made to regret that. I hope it's not a cock and a ball story. A cock and a ball story. This might be the greatest example yet of us, being great in Europe and shit domestically if we're going to lose this League Cup final. But as the players were saying, as Tav was saying today, as the manager was emphasising today, it's about tonight. It's about this game against Spurs. He as manager, Clement, has to concentrate obviously on the two games to sort out, how he's going to work the squad, etc. But the players have to be focused just on this game. I think I think Stuart Weir on the Jersnet podcast on Sunday was talking about us beating Leeds at Elland Road in the Battle of Britain back in 1992, and then the following Saturday we went to Parkhead and we won 1-0 there in the league to make sure that was getting tied up early doors as well. More recent example for me would be, again involving Postecoglou, when we beat Braga in the quarter-final of the run to Seville, and beat them in the quarter-final, second leg at Ibrox after extra time on a Thursday night. On the Sunday, it was Celtic at Hampden, and we went 1-0 down with like 20 odd minutes to go, and we won that after extra time as well. If you're going to have two big games, I think you win both of them or you lose both of them. It's much easier to win or lose both. You just get into a vibe. You get into if you're only concerned with Sunday, absolutely fine. I understand that. I'm seriously concerned about Sunday, but I really can't park it just now because this is magic. Just in and of itself, to be playing Spurs, to have this game against a massive English club, it's just great. And what a thing it would do for us, what a boost it would be to win this game, not just for the progression league, but just the prestige of beating an English Premier League side, a top 5 side, the 5th best side in England last season. That's a hell of a thing for Rangers. I'm not sure that we're at that level yet. I don't know how possible it's going to be. I think Spurs could quite easily, even the reserves could quite easily wipe the floor with us if they're up for it, and I think Postecoglou will be very up for it. I think he could possibly see this as the best place he could be coming, rather than the last place he wants to come, but hopefully it goes the other way. Now, our team, who are we going to play? The only thing we know for a fact, of course, is that Hagi and Danilo won't be playing because they're not in European squad, and make no mistake, if we slip up in any way tomorrow, that will get brought up as a failing of the manager. He was kind of getting ahead. He was getting ahead of that one today as well in the presser, just saying that was the right decision to make at the time. But we don't have any new injury concerns. Oscar Cortez, in fact, is still Rabbi Matondo and Tom Lawrence aren't ready yet. But we know Nana is out altogether. But apparently Cortez is available, and for the squad, I don't know if that's him saying he's going to be. It seems a hell of a game to put Cortez into tomorrow night, but you never know. The manager himself was laughing off all notions of Tottenham being frail right now. He's emphasising this as English Premier League quality, but it was something he mentioned, the speed of thought required, the greater speed of thought required. He mentioned this at Dingwall after the game on Sunday against this level of opposition. He was talking about higher speed and intensity today, the same kind of thing. And I don't know if that's what happened in the Lyon game, which is only kind of a comparable game I've played this season. At Ibrox, the Lyon, they were just too quick for us, and I think he'd maybe told the players have to quicker, and you get, Czerny rushing his shot and missing that open goal, and you get Connor Barron making the shitty lateral pass and putting Lyon in for a goal. I don't know if the players definitely looked like they were playing with much more intensity, but it was more haste, less speed kind of thing. They're almost panicking, so I don't know if we're going to... He says he's really interested to see how we get on tomorrow night, Clement, or tonight, depending on when you're watching this pod. But... he sees it more as a kind of interesting test, and rather than a life or death exam. But yeah, he wasn't biting with the Postecoglou stuff, and he did emphasise how, as a player, he'd been to the San Siro with Bruges and won 1-0 against the reigning European champions. So it was 2003-2004 season, the group stage with Bruges. Now Milan beat Bruges. Kaká scored the only goal back at the Jan Bredow later on that group stage. But he was also talking about when they held the PSG of Messi and Neymar at home at the Jan Bredow as Bruges manager in the Champions League group. So he had to get a draw over in the Bernabeu with Real Madrid. These great moments in his career, these moments you remember forever. So I think he's trying, and Mbappe, obviously playing for that PSG team. So he's trying to, I think, instill in his squad a real excitement about what they can possibly achieve, and that's something he's singularly managed to do very successfully away from home. 7 away games in Europe as manager of Rangers, all against really decent to epic opposition. We see like Benfica and what have you, and he's yet to lose. He's won a few of those games. I think it's a strange season. Celtic gubbed 7-1 in Europe. See, we were horsed 4-1 at home by Lyon, put out the Champions League qualifiers at home by Dynamo Kiev, and yet Rangers and Celtic have both gone to the homes of European trophy holders this season and drawn and held them both, and are both looking really good. And Hearts doing okay as well. The Hearts really holding their own as well in the Conference League. So there's a kind of general good feeling, I think, about Scottish clubs in Europe, never mind Rangers ourselves. This is either going to be the moment where we get stuffed in Europe, where we get our 7-1 doing that Celtic suffered in Dortmund, or it's our magical moment where we have a phenomenal result. I don't know. I just think Tav. Everybody's worried about Tav against two different Asian Cup players, and Ange, of course, a manager who's won the Asian Cup as Australia manager. That's one he's explaining. But Maeda on Sunday, Son Heung-min tomorrow night or tonight. Nobody really knows if Tav should be playing, but yet Tav is the man who, since he's come back in, he effectively scored the winner against St Johnstone. He's scored the first one, and set up the last one against Kilmarnock. He scored the last one against Ross County on Saturday, and it's 3 clean sheets. So on Sunday, it's 3 clean sheets in those games since Tav come back. But people want, and I might feel more comfortable as well with big Dujon Sterling playing, but I don't know that they'll play. I don't know that either player will play both of these games. So I really don't know what's going to happen at right back at all. It's perhaps dependent. Maybe Clement thinks Postecoglou's going to rest Son Heung-min tomorrow. Doesn't really matter though. Somebody brilliant in that side, on the left hand side, Tottenham. But yeah, I'd be happy with either. Sterling or Tav at right back, and I think we could see this thing we've been playing with the 10 Hadji, but he's been out on the left hand side. I think, well, obviously Bezrami just slots right into that, and I think you're more likely to see that, and Diamandi coming in front of or alongside Connor Barron and Nico Raskin in the midfield. The only question is, obviously, we don't have Danilo up front. I'm sure Igaman's going to lead himself. He's going to play up front. I don't think he's going to be playing off the left with Dessers up front or whatever. And Danilo really has been playing starting from the kind of 10 position to become almost a twin striker at times with Igaman in these league games. I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow night. But I think it'd be Igaman up front on his own, and then you've got Danilo, Barron, and Diamandi in the midfield. Even if you want to say Diamandi is nominally the 10, Bajrami out on the left hand side, Czerny on the right hand side. It has to be, and I'm not really bothered if it's Sterling or Tav. I'm as confident and unconfident about both of them in this game, and I would stick with big Balogun. It's Proper's the kind of European man as far as Clement's concerned. That's the big one. It wouldn't surprise me in any way. I think it's very, very likely that Proper will come in instead of Balogun. But I think it'd be more physical than a battle than Proper is up for. So I think I would go with Balogun. And obviously, Hefty has to play. Hefty has to play. I don't know if Yilmaz, he's a real shout of starting. Obviously, he could come in. That could allow Hefty to go up the left. You never know. You never know. I don't think Cortez is ready to start. He could go on the left-hand side, of course, and that would let Bajrami go in one and play at 10, but an out-and-out 10. But I think it'll be much the same as the teams we've been seeing from the lineup from Rangers recently, except we're going to have Egaman up front as the 1, and I think it'll be Diamandi in there at 10. Spurs will odere est facere, to dare is to do, and I just hope that we are ready. Enjoy the game, troops. I'll talk to you after it.